mapapagod at mapapagod tayo, meron tayo sa lahat ng mga volunteer activities, hindi maiiwasan na mapagod tayo. Pero don't forget, dun tayo mag-grow.
Good day everyone, once again I am Earl Gamboa, and join me as I turn my extensive master's research of a very successful and award-winning volunteer organization in the country into a quick self-help guide for individuals and organizations. What is the end goal of this? Number 1 is volunteer acquisition, and number 2 is volunteer retention. So we know that as much as managers want to know how to make their employees stick, so are the leadership of volunteer organizations. With 60,000 registered organizations in the Philippines alone, worthy to note that NGOs or non-profit organizations involved in different work, these organizations are mostly managed by volunteers. If we have 60,000 in the Philippines, what more all over the world? So I would like to start with a quote. One of the basic tenets of human behavior is the instinct to survive. So, understandably, humans have known that the alternative to ruthless protection of self-interest is to lose in the great race called life. Self-preservation has thus become the automatic response to all stimuli. So, you can see in that quote that self-preservation is the basic instinct of humans since time immemorial. So, as much as managers want to know what makes their employees tick, so are the leadership of volunteer organizations. So join me in a very comprehensive but simple guide on how to make volunteers tick and how volunteerism gives people 24 gifts in the 24 gifts of volunteerism. So I will discuss 3 gifts of volunteerism per week in a span of 8 weeks to complete the 24 gifts of volunteerism. Countless research has been done in finding out what motivates employees, meaning people who get paid for their work. So the importance of which cannot be understated as they are the backbone of the corporate sector. However, volunteers, the difference that is they receive no pay. So it can be assumed that there is a significant difference on how they are motivated and what are their psychographics. They say volunteerism is an aberrant human behavior. What do you mean by aberrant? Aberrant means it departs from an accepted standard or it is a divergent from the normal type. Again, I would like to repeat that one of the basic tenets of human behavior is the instinct to survive. Every cell, they say that every cell in an organism's body is embedded with the mandate to outlive, outlast, overcome, and emerge victorious against all foes amidst all circumstances. But maybe that wiring, that kind of wiring in the cell is because of how things were in those times when we had our predators. Now that that humans became the masters of the earth and is now at the top of the food chain, maybe there is something else that has happened aside from survival. And this is the instinct to give. This is the instinct to help others. It is a communal instinct. So going back to the prey-predator instinct, we all cells in the organism's body is embedded with the mandate to outlive, outlast, overcome, and emerge victorious against all foes amidst all circumstances. The expected result to non-compliance with this command is to be wiped out from existence. the fate not only of the individual, but an inevitable fate of his whole progeny. Volunteers defy the above concept in that they undertake activities where the cost exceed their benefits. It is thus very interesting to note that various theories are trying to explain this. So there has been research already in this kind of field, but not as many as researchers in the field of employee motivation. So one particular research has created the VFI, or the Volunteer Functions Inventory, which is the most frequently used instrument for measuring multiple motivational dimensions. And it identified 6 personal and social functions that is served or that can be taken from volunteering. Number 1 is value. Number 2 is understanding. Number 3 is enhancement. Number 4 is career. Number 5 is social. And number 6 is protective, or it protects the volunteer psyche by reducing negative feelings or personal problems. So those are the 6 volunteer functions inventory. This VFI is very academic in nature. It is simple but it's very academic. When you say value, you do not immediately get what that means. However, drawing from the VFI and drawing from countless research which I have made in my master's research as a review of related literature, I have come up with 24. I have come up with 24 gifts of volunteerism that a person can get, that a volunteer can get.
Tinago niya yung paniniwala namin na imposibleng mangyari, posible pala. So lahat ng iniisip ng tao, maaaring posible. Lahat ng gustong isipin ng tao, especially sa pagbabago, meron pala.
Well, we want to empower children and make them realize that they can make a difference in their own simplest ways. Nakita kasi namin na bilang bata, we can still mold them, and they are the future of our generation. So bilang mga bata, andun pa sila sa stage na pwede pa nating i-mold sila na maging isang magaling na leader, isang maging mabuting Pilipino, dahil yun ang kailangan natin ngayon.
Pinasali ko po ang aking anak dito sa MAD kasi po naniniwala po ako na malaki ang maitutulong ito sa kanya. Akala po namin as parent, sapat na po yung mga naituro namin sa kanya. Pero dahil po dito, nararamdaman ko po kung anong klaseng ibinigay nila sa anak ko. Lagi po itong dedicated sa mga trabaho niya at para po yung pagmamahal niya po sa amin, mas ipinakita niya dahil po sa nangyaring ganitong event.
Di namin alam paano nangyari yon, and in just 6 years, we've been to 20 areas involving more than 1,000 children and getting more than 500 volunteers sa buong Pilipinas.
Ang mga natutunan ko po sa MAD ay magkaroon ng pagkakaisa at mahalaga ang pagtatanim lalo na sa ilang kalikasan.
Mas natutunan ko pa pong mahalin ang nanay ko. At ngayon ko pa lang po na naranasang sabihin sa kanya ang I love you.
Isa rin yan sa mga dahilan kung bakit ang bata ang tinatarget namin, kasi yan talaga ang pinaka-foundation ng isang bansa. Kung meron tayong maayos na kabataan, magkakaroon ng isang maayos na bansa.
Malaking mindset change din yung ibigay ng MAD for me. Minsan mahirap kumuha ng inspirasyon how you can be making a difference and kung paano ka pa magkakaroon ng impact sa society. Through I Am MAD, mamumulatan ka na meron ding ibang mga individuals at ibang mga volunteers sa iba't ibang bahagi ng Pilipinas na talagang may pagmamahal sa society, may pagmamahal sa kabataan at merong hope para ma-improve yung kabuhayan at yung, yung experiences at yung pangarap ng mga kabataan.
Every area, iba-ibang experience. Pero yung bata, kapag tumingin na sa amin, tapos nakangiti, at nakikita namin yung mga magulang nila nakangiti sa amin, sabi namin, kailangan natin itong ipagpatuloy.
Gusto namin maging parte ng solusyon, hindi ng problema. Yan ang battle cry ng IAMAD, maging parte ng solusyon. Gusto naming ipakita sa mga tao na mayroon pang pag-asa ang Pilipinas.
Kami ang I Am Making a Difference at naniniwala kami na ang pagbabago ay nagsisimula sa bawat batang Pilipino.
I have come up with 24. I have come up with 24 gifts of volunteerism that a person can get, that a volunteer can get. Let me enumerate the 24. Number 1 is belongingness and affinity. Number 2 is learning and mastery. Number 3 is leisure time. For number 4, it is finding one's identity or role play. Number 5 is power. Number 6 is influence. Okay? For number 7, it is prestige. For number 8, it is exclusivity. For number 9, it is inclusivity. Number 10, it is opportunity. Number 11 is reciprocity. Number 12 is closer relationship with God. Number 13 is control over one's affairs. Number 14, display of strengths and expertise. Number 15, responsibility and confidence. Number 16 is the journey. Number 17 is legacy. Number 18 is inspiration. Number 19 is networking and professional relationships. Number 20 is sense of accomplishment. 21 are perks and privileges. Number 22 is recognition and admiration. 23 is self-actualization and self-transcendence. And the last is meaning and self-worth. Now for number 24. So these 24 gifts of volunteerism can be taken no matter what stage of volunteer are you in what they call the volunteer life cycle. What is the volunteer life cycle? If you are familiar with the works of psychologist Erik Erikson, he gave us 8 stages. 8 stages that make up his theory. His theory was called the stages of psychosocial development. The first stage, these stages are life stages of a person. And the first is trust versus mistrust. This comes when humans are babies, they learn who to trust and who to mistrust. Those people who care for them, they trust. The people, things that can hurt them or is a threat to them, they mistrust. Stage 2 are for toddlers, I think. These are for toddlers. It is autonomy versus shame and doubt. So toddlers come at a time wherein they already do things on their own. But they also cannot do some things on their own, which is a source of shame and doubt. So that is stage 2. The stage 3 is initiative versus guilt. On stage 2, they learn how to do things on their own. On stage 3, they learn how to start things that could be beneficial for the people around them. But it is also a stage wherein guilt settles. It can also be a stage wherein it is a source of guilt. Wherein this young child or young person creates a mistake or does something that is not acceptable to society's norms. That is why they either initiate or they either receive guilt. Stage 4 is when they go to their respective schools. I think this stage is already in grade school. Stage 4 is about industry versus inferiority. When in grade school, unlike preschool, there is already a semblance of rankings. The part of the lessons learned is how to recite, how to publicly recite. Learns either on how to be industrious versus how they are inferior to his or her peers. Stage 5 is identity versus confusion. This is more on the teens, wherein they are already forming a part of their identity. They could either form an identity already that is accepted by sociological norms, or they could be confused and they could rebel. So that is just a broad thinking about stage 5, identity versus confusion. Stage 6 is intimacy versus isolation. This is when people are now looking forward to have a partner in life. It is when they find intimacy, or it is where they are rejected and find isolation. Stage 7 is more on the golden years of people. This is already when they are in their 50s and have their midlife crisis. Stage 7 speaks of generativity versus stagnation. What is generativity? Generativity is when people think about the next generation, on what legacy can they leave for their children and their grandchildren. But the other side of the spectrum is stagnation. It is when question themselves if they have accomplished much for their life. And lastly, stage 8 is integrity versus despair. And lastly, for stage 8, it is integrity versus despair. Why have I discussed Erik Erikson's stages of psychological development? Because this is one of my bases. This is one among of many of my theoretical bases of the 24 Gifts of Volunteerism. And this mostly talks about the volunteer life cycle. So, what can you conclude about the Erik Erikson stages of psychological development? You can identify where people are in these stages. It doesn't mean that trust versus mistrust is only exclusive to toddlers, to newborns and to toddlers. This can come at any point in their lives. So, a good leader or a good manager of volunteer organizations can identify or can read what stage is the volunteer in his life. When they are able to read, then they are able to give them their psychological needs. So, for example, if their psychological stage seems to be at stage 5, identity versus confusion, then they can use the organization to form their identity. From confused, you could move to the positive side of identity. 4. Industry versus inferiority. If you feel that the person can be a little bit inferior to his peers, then the volunteer organization can be a source of learning and mastery. So doon na lumabas yung isang gift of volunteerism, and so on. So I have discussed it in the the Erik Erikson's stages of psychological development because it is one of my main bases in forming the 24 Gifts of Volunteerism. So I did not just get it from thin air. This is based on research. Okay? So they say that volunteer is often lifestyle. Unlike the unending quest for work-life balance, in volunteerism there is often no delineation between work and what is personal activity. So that is the difference between volunteerism and work. That should be a basic consideration and assumption in the research. Volunteers develop a so-called style of volunteering over time. So the nature of volunteering is essentially multidimensional. Motivations, frequency of volunteering, type of activities, etc., etc. Second, volunteering is a multi-layered phenomenon requiring multiple levels of analysis. It may be structural, the structure of the organization, how they do things, their mechanisms. Can be cultural, how this nation looks at volunteering, and people, this nationality or these types of people look at how spending their time aside from work. So it depends on the context. It identifies 5 distinct phases: nominee, newcomer, emotional involvement, established volunteer, and retiring. So it is good that in managing these people, in managing your volunteers, you know what stage are they in their volunteering life cycle. This will enable you to manage them better and know how to tweak your management style. I would like to discuss not the theories, but the concepts of different theories that I have used to come up with the 24 Gifts of Volunteerism. They say that when you volunteer, there should be a goodness of fit. When transactions are sufficient and reciprocal, a goodness of fit exists. What does this mean? When a volunteer comes into an organization, he or she is first testing the waters. He or she is trying to see if there is a goodness of fit. And this goodness of fit is two-way. He could be beneficial to the organization, and the organization can be beneficial to them in a way. Not in terms of money, not in terms of monetary and rewards, but in terms of other things. Be it strong or be it explicit or implicit, there is always peer pressure in groups. And there is also what you call groupthink, wherein people in a group tend to think alike. So there is an imitative response, or there is a strengthening or weakening of learned behavior or an acquired behavior. Let me give an example of an imitative response. Have you noticed that people in a certain group talk the same way? In the same group, talk the same way, dress the same way, because people want to live in established norms. There are only a few people that they do it differently. But most of the time, they want to acquire the behavior because they want to fit in. So that is one of the buttons which you can push in management of volunteers. Another concept is volunteers develop a sense of self-efficacy. What do you mean by self-efficacy? It is a concept that refers to the confidence people gain when they master the skill in a certain activity. It's self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is like a sense of it's like the feeling of sense of accomplishment, but it's different. For volunteers doing manual labor or volunteers doing teaching or speaking roles in seminars, self-efficacy is a very positive feeling wherein you think you are doing great and you know that you are doing great in that certain activity. This concept is again the foundation of several gifts of volunteerism, and one of them is mastery and another is learning. Another concept of social learning theory is the expectation about their ability to accomplish larger and more involved tasks. So the length of time that you are volunteering, you will find that there is an expectation for you to accomplish larger and become more involved. They also say that family and friends are often the paths by which people come to volunteer. And some individuals gain enough confidence from their experiences to assume leadership responsibilities as volunteers. So the next is the lifespan theory and life course theory. This is Erickson's 8 stages of the life cycle. And the other concept of this is how history and culture affect people's experiences during each stage. A given culture in the same sequence and at the same age, people belong to several cohorts of different sizes based on when they were born, when they live, and their perceived status. So you can imagine in any group, there is called a clique. These cliques are subgroups of the group, informal subgroups of the group, which people form by themselves. These people tend to get together well. So these are what they say as cohorts. And you can see that there are several similarities. There are several similarities between the members of certain cohorts and other cohorts. Certain cohorts within the cohort. So makikita niyo yung pagkakapare-pareho. So they say that people of the same feather flock together. So meeting an inspirational person or facing a challenge. How can volunteers use the knowledge of Erickson's 8 stages of life cycle? So trust versus mistrust, you could meet an inspirational person in the organization whom you can meet people there you can trust, and you can also learn who to mistrust. Stage 2. Next is volunteering can help teenagers develop positive self-identities and place young adults in intimate situations. Yung iba, nakikita yung kanilang, what do you call this? Yung iba nakikita yung kanilang soulmate sa volunteer organizations. That's very true. Genuine activity by which they feel useful to society. Seniors or those who are already senior in age can feel more useful to society in a way that goes beyond their occupations. Volunteer's network of colleagues allow him to apply his business skills to serve the community through different projects organized by the club. Volunteering. So volunteering can also prevent people in stressful situations. They can prevent burnout and help them maintain a healthy perspective on all the areas of their lives. So again, people in late adulthood can remain useful and active. That is very important to them. And they can also gain an overall sense of integrity about their lives. They can understand their history, and they can communicate how their history contributes to their future trajectory. You can see what type of gift is this. This is the gift of legacy. They could spend time listening to the stories of volunteers. Their self-interest and choices made to accomplish personal goals can also be satisfied by volunteering. So volunteering is not purely a venue to give, but it's also a venue to take. Because it also helps you accomplish personal goals and satisfy your self-interest. Of course, this should be all well-meaning. So another gift is to maximize rewards and minimize costs. So these are the prestige and perks gift of volunteerism. So rewards, let's talk about rewards. Rewards can be tangible or intangible. What are tangible rewards? Money, awards. Intangible rewards are attention, status, affection. So long as they are seen as having value or bringing satisfaction. Costs occur as either physical and emotional disadvantages or missed opportunities to gain rewards. So the next theory is the social exchange theory. Basic motivations can be power, prestige, altruism, fame or recognition, attention, status, affection. It says that people may violate the norms and laws when they believe that costs are too great and the rewards are too small. They provide people with opportunities to express or demonstrate their beliefs. They learn new things. They end off feelings, bad feelings such as guilt, shame, and isolation. Volunteerism can help them do that. And volunteerism, of course, can enhance their self-confidence by giving them skills that are needed or honing their skills and talents. The cost of volunteering included attending workshops and working several hours per week. So that is the cost. But she enjoyed working with new people and being productive. So those are the gains. When their self-interests merge with the interests and needs of the organization, there is a very important thing that happens. That is called the value alignment. And the next theory is, of course, the very popular Maslow's pyramid of self-actualization and self-transcendence. Self-transcendence means you experience peak experiences and plateau experiences. What are these? Peak experiences are brief, intense, and shocking events. Nadir experiences involve psychological trauma. Plateau experiences are relatively serene events that provide people with a sense of enjoyment and happiness. They say that these self-transcendence experiences, 3 kinds, should be experienced in a volunteer organization so that people can be retained or people will enjoy their time volunteering in it. So yes, shared trauma, that's true. Intense and shocking events, nakakagulat, shock and awe, nakakamangha. These are peak experiences. The two experiences, sense of enjoyment and happiness, can also be done in a volunteer organization. Volunteerism may simply be an activity that allows people to experience self-actualization. Opportunities to experience dignity, justice, meaning, mastery, and love for others. Key strategies for recruiting and retaining committed volunteers. These are, you should of course make sure that their physical and safety needs are met. Second, social workers can help volunteers reflect on their experiences and develop self-transcendent insights. The next theory is social functioning. Satisfaction, positive relationships, and feelings of self-worth. The next theory is about the basic concept. Self-effacing solution, which is love. Expansive solution, which is mastery. Resignation solution, which is freedom. And I would like to take note of the very important theory in psychology, which is the Psikolohiyang Filipino or the Filipino psychology. Umiiral sa bawat organisasyon ang pag-iisip na tinatawag na hiya, utang na loob, pakikisama, pakikiramdam, kalayaan, karangalan, katarungan, kagandahang loob. So those are the relevant Filipino psychology aspects or concepts. Group dynamics or systems perspective. The desire to volunteer has to start somewhere because they are possessive of their time. So it comes from family or friends. That's not very clear. And the second to the last is role and structure. In volunteering, you assign yourselves roles, both formal and informal. It can be implicit or explicit, but there is always a system of assigning roles in the organization. It can be seen or it can be unseen. So there is the group structure, which is the power structure. There's the leadership structure, the affectional structure, social power, attraction power, reward power, coercive power, legitimate power, expert power, and respect. I have discussed this also in my leadership and social responsibility talk, which you can see in this channel also. The last is the concepts of group process. These are group dynamics or group behavior. Concepts are conformity, conflict, cooperation, group cohesiveness, clarity of path, outcome of conflict, and nature and timing of feedback. So, there are several operational definitions. I have defined 3 aspects: motivational factors, performance, positive performance, and performance that is negative or negative performance. Motivational factors are what does the organization have or what the organization does not have, or what factors or methods does the leadership of the organization apply in managing their volunteers. Performance is defined as participation, effectiveness, efficiency, enthusiasm, attendance, initiative, industriousness, retention. Negative is seen as apathy, absenteeism, non-participation, ineffectiveness, inefficiency, laziness, and attrition. Attrition is the the converse of retention. If people go, volunteers go, this is called volunteer attrition. There are several assumptions that researchers and practitioners and leaders in the volunteer sector must keep in mind. Volunteers are not compensated but should be taken care of and motivated. That's why we are studying these motivational factors and these gifts that we can give to them. And number 2, volunteers are very much important. So, I am very grateful to the organization named I Am MAD, or I Am Making a Difference. This is a youth organization in the Philippines that is award-winning and very engaged in these times. Have allowed me to hold an FGD, a focus group discussion on some of their members. This was some time ago. So, from their answers in the survey and the FGD, I have created and I want to share with you I Am MAD's volunteer profile. So hello Mako and hello Christian Marks and all the volunteers of I Am MAD. I would like to share with you the I Am MAD volunteer profile from a researcher, which is yours truly. So to the I Am MAD volunteer, to you, learning is an important process and volunteering to you is a two-way street. You teach the people you help and at the same time you learn from them too. You have always sought for something that gives you your life more meaning, and volunteering in this organization gives you that fulfillment. It gives you the feeling that you are useful and active. More so, it makes you feel needed. Another unique feeling is serenity, that certain high when you participate in the organization's activities. It gives you enjoyment and happiness you cannot feel from anywhere else, for example, in your day job in the corporate world. You greatly appreciate MAD's inclusivity. There is also this intimacy wherein you and your volunteers treat each other as equals and can mingle together without invisible classifications or groupings according to wealth, power, prestige, age, etc. Even if you come from different backgrounds and walks of life, you feel that you can work or collaborate with them easily. You do not know for sure yet on how life's events such as getting married, getting a promotion, or death of a loved one would affect your attitude towards volunteering. To you, the organization is not about politics or power play, and you feel no need to initiate or participate in such, nor to be among those who exercise power. You volunteer because you want to, and do not include agendas such as the organization gives you benefits, it is advantageous to your business or your personal pursuits. At this point in time, we believe that you will volunteer even if the cost exceeds the benefits. Volunteering in itself is to you. Volunteering in itself to you is the end and not a means to an end. You will still do the same even if the activities to you do not give you tangible or intangible rewards, such as money, attention, status, and affection. What a beautiful profile for a volunteer, and what a beautiful profile for a volunteer organization. So thank you once again, I Am MAD, for giving me valuable insights that enabled me to complete this research paper. So those are the concepts which are the foundation of the 24 Gifts of Volunteerism. If you find these concepts worthy of understanding, if you find value in these concepts which you can use in volunteer acquisition, retention, effectiveness, and efficiency, and of course to improve, to continually improve the relationship between the volunteers and the leaders of your organization, I am encouraging you to get a copy of these 24 Gifts of Volunteerism, which will be available soon. So thank you very much for listening. More power to your organizations. Once again, I am Earl Gamboa, the author of 24 Gifts of Volunteerism, the President and Program Director of Handa Organization, a disaster response and charity organization in the Philippines. Thank you very much, everyone, and may we all have a good day.
Mad Talks is a celebration of a Filipino culture of bayanihan or yung volunteerism. So, ang ginagawa ng Mad Talks, we actually share, solicit, and showcase volunteer stories through different mediums. Like, we have the Mad Talks events, we have the Madology, and we have the Mad Starts within the social media.
Yes. So isa rin po ito sa ng IAMAD, project ng IAMAD na kung saan ini-encourage namin ang mga kabataan na sumali, na maging parte ng solusyon. At sumali sa lahat ng organization, hindi lang sa IAMAD, na maging parte siya ng pagbabago. So naging ang IAMAD or ang Mad Talks ay naging venue rin, no? Naging venue ng mga bawat kabataan na especially mga volunteer na magbahagi ng kanilang kwento para ma-inspire, no? Ma-encourage, ma-inspire ang mga kabataan, kapwa-kabataan na maging parte lagi ng solusyon.
Noong una, kasi pag pinagsama-sama mo lahat yun, sobrang dami palang tao kayang gumawa ng maliliit na pagbabago para sa mundo natin.
Hindi natin alam yung mga simpleng bagay na ginagawa natin. It could really make a difference sa kabataan, sa parents na nakakausap natin during the camp, sa mga kids. Kasi yun yung mga times na akala natin wala lang, pero yun yung mga panahon na pwede tayong makapagbigay ng impact sa kanila. At malay natin, di ba, in the future, sila din, they could also make a difference.
Na hindi sila mapagod, and patuloy pa rin sila na mag-inspire ng mga kabataan na gaya namin. Kasi sila yung makakapag-build talaga ng mga future leader natin through their values that they shared.